Good morning, children. Today we are going to start with the first poem of the textbook Flamingo for the class 12. The title of the poem is My Mother at 66. This poem is written by the famous poet Kamala Das. Aging and death are two realities that have baffled humanity since time immemorial. The theme of this poem is aging. A person becomes old, which is a very sad thing for many. And death is the reality which everybody faces. The one who is born is bound to die one particular day. But the death of near and dear ones is a very saddening fact. And these are the realities which have baffled, which have confused the man over the ages. Both of these realities, the reality of the death and the reality of aging, both these realities are saddening, especially when strong family ties exist between the members of the family. Indian family members have very strong bonds, and the mother is the dearest one to each one of us. And here, when the poet sees that she is going to separate from her mother, she is going to lose her mother, she feels very sad over the fact. The fear of losing the beloved ones grips the minds of the family members as they become old, and death reflects on their faces. As one becomes very old, one can see that the person has become old on the face itself. And when one comes across this reality, then one starts feeling very sad over this particular fact. When we are young, we are closely attached to our parents. But when we grow up and raise our own family, devote our time for our profession and responsibilities, we may have to leave our old parents. We may not remain with parents when we have to move to some other places and we leave them. So there is a separation from our parents, and this is also a very sad fact. The exigencies of life compel us to take decisions that are bold but at the same time painful. Sometimes these decisions of separation are quite painful, but we are forced to take up such kind of decisions. When life demands separation from our beloved ones, we may have to leave them behind and carry on with our duties and responsibilities. When we have to go to different places because of our duties, because of our responsibilities, then we have to separate from our parents, we have to separate from our grandparents. And this particular fact makes us very sad, but this is bound to happen in one's life. Nature exhorts us to look towards life. Youthfulness, energy, beauty and light, rather than crying in darkness over the period. We should not interpret this as lack of love, care and gratitude to the people who have sacrificed their lives to make us what we are today. Now what happens when we become sad because of separation, because of loss of dear and near ones? Then we start looking for life in nature. We start enjoying the beauty of the nature. We find the very consoling. The nature is the one which starts comforting us. At that same time, one should make sure that one should not forget his or her responsibilities towards their dear ones who are old. Now let us see about this particular poem. This poem, My Mother at 66, deals with the inner struggle of the poetess who feels sad looking at this particular fact she is sad and anguished as a loving daughter, but prefers to concentrate on the positive aspects of life represented by the male children. At the end, she leaves her mother and goes to her destination, though she is anguished and sad. We too may face similar situations in life. What would be our response? How will we face these kind of situations which the poet has faced in her life? Now about the poetess, Kamala Das is born in Malabar, Kerala on 31st March 1934. She was an eminent English poetess and writer. She also wrote in Malayalam under a pen name Madhavkutti. Her first poetry works were The Silence, which was published in the year 1964, and Summer in Calcutta in the year 1965, and the last ones were My Mother at Sixtry Six, which was published in 1999. She is quite well known for a novel Alphabet of Dust, 1977, then autobiography My Story, which is a confessional biography, and a collection of short stories, Padmavat the Harlot and other stories. Now her autobiography, My Story, which was published in 1976, tells her story and she confesses whatever she has done during her lifetime. In 60s, when the first volumes of poems were brought out, Kamala Das appeared as a fresh year in Indian English writing. She talked of independence of mind and body in a direct voice, very similar to that of Margaret Duras and Sylvia Plath. Kamala Das is noted for 5 poems and explicit autobiography. She wrote chiefly of love, its betrayal, and the consequent anguish. Kamala Das was a confessional poet. She died in the year 2009 at the age of 75. In this poem, Kamala Das explores the theme of aging and death and the fear of separation from her mother. Here you can see the poet and her mother, My Mother at 66, written by Kamala Das. The poetess was driving her car and she was going towards Cochin airport, and suddenly she observes her mother, who is quite old, who has reached the age of 66. Her mother was dozing, and she sees her face had turned pale, expressionless. Her face has turned ash-like, and suddenly she feels that her mother has become very old. Then she wants to get rid of this thought, and she looks at the trees which are sprinting. As you observe from the vehicle, and you see that everything is moving, and that is what she sees. And she sees the children spinning out of their homes. They are coming out of the homes. So you can see the youthfulness there, energy there among those children who are quite happy. And again, once again, she observes her mother, who is quite old. Her face has turned pale and ashen-like, and she looks like winter's moon, late winter's moon. And she's again thinking about her mother. Suddenly the childhood fear comes in her that when she's going to lose her. The loss of hers, separation from hers, saddens her. She's filled with those thoughts, but she wants to get rid of that thought. She just looks at her, smiles at her. She doesn't want to get separated from her, and she just wants to forget about all that. And just she keeps on smiling at the end. Let us go to the explanation of this poem. Driving from my parents' home to coaching last Friday morning, I saw my mother beside me. Who was driving? The poet herself was driving. She was driving a car. She was driving a car from her ancestral home, from her parents' home. Where she was going? She was going to Cochin. Cochin, there was an airport, and she was going to that airport on the last Friday morning. And suddenly she saw her mother was sitting there in the car beside her. Next to her, she was sitting. She was dozing. She was sleeping. She was feeling sleepy there. Her open mouth. Her mouth was open. Her face ashen like. Her face had turned like ash. And that was like a corpse, dead body. What was like a dead body? Her mother was looking like a dead body. Her mouth was open. She was sleeping. Her face had turned ash-like, and she lies with pain. And suddenly she has realized with pain that probably she is going to separate her. She is going to become old. Suddenly a shocking realization has dawned upon the poet that her mother is fast aging and she has become senile and listless like a corpse. She gets apprehensive about her fast approaching death. She gets worried about her death, that she is going to die sooner. That she was as old as she looked. She was quite old, but soon put that thought away. She wanted to get rid of that thought. She wanted to escape from that thought. She never wanted to get separated from her mother. It was a very sad thought, and she suddenly looks out of the window of the car. She looked out at young trees sprinting, and where she sees youthfulness in those trees. Young trees sprinting, youthfulness. How is our youth? It's full of your vigor and that sprint that one can see there. The merry children spilling out of their homes. The childhood, happy childhood, merry childhood. The merry children are very happy. They are not worried about anything else. And here those children are coming out of their homes. So it's a very symbolical here. Young trees that shows youth which is full of energy, full of vigor, and that's why young trees sprinting. The merry children are always happy, and that shows the happiness. Childhood full of happiness, spilling out of their homes. They are coming out of their homes. The poetess dares not to look at the face of her mother, very grim reality of her mother's marrying end. So she tries to divert her attention. She realizes that with aging, youthfulness, agility are fast being left behind. But after the airport security check, she is going towards the airport. Now they come to the airport, and there security check is there, and there she is standing a few yards away. Again she observes her. She looks at her. I looked again at her. She looks at her. Wan, pale, her face has turned pale, expressionless, wan, ashen-like as a late winter's moon. And here we can see simile being used here. And her face has been like late winter's moon, and felt that old familiar ache, that old familiar pain. And what was that old familiar pain? That probably she's going to lose. My childhood's fear of separation, fear of loss of her mother. When the poetess looks at her mother's tired, ill and pale face, indicating her approaching death, the fear of losing her mother, the pain which she has always felt since her childhood, and that is what is her childhood fear. And what is childhood fear? Childhood fear is of separation. Childhood fear is of loss of her mother. But all I said was, see you soon, Amma. All I did was she wants to get rid of this thought. She doesn't want to think of her separation, which is a very, very sad event for her. But all I said, so just to get rid of that, see you soon, Amma. She's not sure whether she's going to see her again. She's going to separate. She's going away. But she just says, see you soon, Amma. She wants again to see her. She doesn't want to lose her. She doesn't want her to die. And she knows that she can't escape from this. But she just keeps on smiling. All I did was smile and smile and smile. Just to forget this, she keeps on smiling. Just to get rid of this anguish, she keeps on smiling. The expressions, but all I said and all I did show the poet's helplessness. It's a fact, a person who is born, one day is going to die, and she's totally helpless. She can't do anything to that. One day, her mother is going to die, and death is approaching very fast. She knows exhibiting a fear and anxiety about her mother's well-being would not help. She ironically uses a platitude, see you soon, Amma, and smiles constantly to hide her anguish. The use of word my makes the poem very personal. My mother, but remember that it is applicable universally. But when she has used mine, it makes personal and more intimate and neutral, as it is a poem not just about the poetess mother, but the poetess childhood fear of separation. And this one is a universal kind of thing and very appropriate title. It is given My Mother at 66. 66 is the age when person is on the verge of death. The phrase at 66 gives a reason and meaning to the mother state of being ashen like that of a corpse. She has just become like a dead body. Her face has turned wan, pale, expressionless, and it is just like a late winter's moon when it is not shining much. And inside her, proceeding towards death, she is on the verge of death. That is what it tells us. Without the phrase at 66, the reader might have not been clueless about the intent of the poem. So this has been justified. The theme of the poem is aging and death. She becomes aware of the fact that it will lead to her own abysmal loneliness and helplessness without her mother. She is going to lose her, and it is bound to happen. The poem presents before us a contrast between life and death. So there we can see youth, childhood, youth when sprinting is there, childhood when full of happiness is there. The positive aspect of life, energy, growth, usefulness, agility, happiness are presented before us in the images of merry children spinning out of their homes. So kind of visual imagery we can see here. Great trees are sprinting. Then in contrast there are images of death also, as pictured by the description of mother sitting beside her and dozing. Her mouth is open. Her face is ashen like that of a corpse. So her face has turned like a corpse and pale like a late winter's moon where there is no shine there. The poetess experiences fear and pain at the thought of losing her mother, but decides to wear a sweet smile. Though she knows that she is going to lose her, even then she keeps smiling. The repetition of the last phrase, all I did was smile and smile and smile, emphasizes the fact that she has reached the conclusion that despite the great love and concern for her mother, she has to go away. She is going to die. The repetition also underscores the poet's sadness. The poet clearly reflects the positive attitude of the author as she chooses to look at the brighter side of life, merry children, green trees, rather than pale and waning face of her mother. She tries to hide her sorrow and fear inner smile. She wants to forget all that, and she finally decides to fly to her destination, leaving her mother behind. So she has to leave her. She knows that one day mother is going to die and she is approaching the death. Thank you.